Hi guys, I created this visualization a while ago to visualize how async function works in Svelte, and I find this graph in particular very interesting. I spent quite a while to draw this out, so today I'm gonna share with you guys how I created this graph over here. Right, so if you take a look at this graph, it has like two axes and a red line denoting like the async function itself, and we have some labels and arrows, and then we have like a red dot that moves along the line, right? So that's what we are going to create. So we are going to start with creating an SVG. So we're going to have like a width of 200 pixel and a height of 200 pixel, right? To draw the line, we're going to use paths. So I'm going to have a path from 0 to 200. So that would be a straight line. And then for the horizontal axis, so this is the y-axis, and for the horizontal axis I'm gonna have 0 and 200. So path, like the D attributes denotes like the path definition. So it starts with 0 so which is the top left, and then it goes to 200. So 0 is the x and 200 is a y, so that's why it's draw a straight line. And for the x-axis is drawing a horizontal line, right? Um, so the next thing we're going to do is to create like a arrow end for the graph. So how I did that was I googled around, and then I found this definition, marker definition. So it draws like a triangle, and to use this definition for the path, gonna use the marker n and refers to the URL, refers to this ID. So marker n URL and then hash for the head. So I'm gonna add both over here. Right. Um. Yep. So it doesn't seem to work. Right. So what is missing is that the marker is drawn at so the SVG itself is 200 by 200 wide, and the line is right at the edge where 0 to 200, right? And the marker is appended at the end of the SVG, uh, outside of the area of the SVG. That's why it's not showing. So to solve this, I'm gonna add a style called so I'm gonna target SVG, then overflow visible, and now you see like the arrow showing up, right? And also to create some space on the left and the right, I'm gonna add some margin, probably 30 pixel, right? So now we have like the X and Y axis. Next thing we want to go do is to add labels, right? So to add labels, we can use text. So I can add text. Uh, so text, let's say 0, and text says 200, probably 1, right? So for this text, I want to move it down 200 pixels, so I'm gonna say y 200, right? And so so now it's sits just nice on the line, but it would be nicer if I move both text to the left of the axis. So I can do like say uh, minus 10, x minus 10. That will shift both numbers to the left. Um, I can do that, but I could also do something like I could group both text together and shift them together. So I can shift them with like I can wrap them inside a group, and then instead of doing this over here, I can add transform, translate. Right, so it's the same thing, but I'm shift them together. So now I feel like they are still a bit too close to the axis. I can shift them even more, right? And I feel like I want to move them down a bit, so I'm gonna add 10 for the Y position, right? So same thing goes with the x-axis. I'm gonna paste it here, but instead of Y, I'm gonna use X, and instead of shifting left, I'm gonna shift right. Gonna shift it top 20 pixel and shift it like 10. So it's most. So you can see it's actually like mirroring the X and Y axis. Probably I shifted too much, so just probably 0. Oh, it's probably 10. Negative 10 or 5. I think this looks good, right? Probably a bit too high up, so I'm gonna like go for like 15. Okay, good enough, right? Next thing I'm gonna add is the axis label. So over here I'm gonna add another text. So I'm gonna add the middle of the axis, and it's called time. And then over here I'm gonna have x equals 100, and this is called like a value, right? So I noticed that the text over here is left aligned, right? That's why it's starting from left to the right. So what I can do is I can add a class to the y-axis group. So this is called y, and I can style it with CSS. Oh, doesn't work. Let me see. Okay. So it doesn't. So CSS property text align doesn't work, but we need to use another SVG property called text anchor and text. So now the text is anchored to the right, right? So it seems like the left is a bit chopped off, so I'm gonna add more margin to it. So 50 pixel. Yep. So now it looks better, right? Yeah. So now we have both the axes done. The next thing we're gonna do is to draw the red line. Right. So how am I gonna draw the red line is that I'm gonna use SVG element called a polyline. And with polyline, I can use something called a points, and I can draw lines. So how it works is that I can have 0, 0, 1, 0, 200, 0, and then space. Sorry. And then that would draw probably 200, 200. That should draw a diagonal line. Let's see why it's not working. So probably I need to style it. So I'm gonna have polyline stroke equals to red. Yep. So now you see the line is showing. So it's gonna start at 0, 0, and then 200, 200, a diagonal line. Right. So how am I going to draw the easing function? So I need over here in the Svelte REPL, I have this bounce out easing function. So I'm going to copy this out and paste it right in over here. So I'm going to create a script tag. I'll paste this in. So okay. And then the next thing I'm going to do is that I'm going to generate points over here. So I create a variable called points. and so I'm gonna generate point from 0 to 1. So I'm gonna create um, 500 points in between from 0 to 1. So okay, sorry, let me do that again. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna generate uh, 10 points from 0 to 1, right? So that would be 0, 0 0.1, 0 0.2, 0 0.3, 0 0.4, 0 0.5, 0 0.6, 1.0, right? So I'm gonna, so I have like 10 points. Okay, I think 11 points from 0 to 1. So that would be my x-axis points, and then I'm going to calculate the y value for each of the points using the easing function, right? So y would be mapping x.map value and call the bounce out value. So here I have the x 11 points for the x-axis and 11 points for the y-axis. I'm going to just join both points and then append it to the points variable, the string. So can do this with probably x for each value, points index, points equals to points plus space. Sorry, I should use a template string over here. Whoops. Okay, value and comma and then y index, right? So let's console this out and see how it looks like. Right, so it's a string of points. So starting from 0 0, 0 1. Hold on. I should equals. So it's starting from 0 0, 0 1, 0 2, 0 3, 0 4, 0 5, and all the way to 1. Right, and if I use this variable instead over here, whoops, then you should see the graph. So something is clearly not right. So let's see, will it be because of this? So I'm guessing it's because that the decimal point is too much. Oh wait, no. So the point that, sorry, the points are from 0 to 1, right? Which is what we want to draft out. But in the SVG, 0 to 1 will be just this little tiny spot over here. So we need to blow up the value to 200, 200x of the value, because we are drawing 0 to 1 in from an SVG on a plane of 0 to 200. Alright, so I'm going to times the value of 200 over here and 200 over here as well. Right, now you see the graph is drawing. Right, so first thing first, there's a black color inside the polyline. So that is because by default the fill color is black. So I'm gonna change it to fill none. Now you see the graph is like this, right? So you see that we if you can squint it clearly, you can clearly see 10 points over here. So 0, 0 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5, 0.6, 0.7, 0.8, 0.9, and 1.1, right? So the idea is that if we add more points over here, so it will be less sharp and it will be more curvy, because now we only have 11 points and we join them together in a straight line. It's a bit rough. So how I'm gonna do that is that I'm gonna use a code to generate number of points over here. So I'm gonna shake things up a bit. So instead of using a fixed array, I'm gonna use a for loop. So let's start with 0 and let's end with 1. And on every step, we use 0.05 instead of 0.1, right? So over here, so x would be the I, right? So we're gonna copy over this over here. So x would be I, and the y value would be bounce out called with the I. I'm gonna clean this up over here, and now you see the lines are more smooth, right? As we add more points over into the curve, you're gonna see it's getting smoother and smoother, right? Sharpen the edge, especially over here. So previously, I'm guessing that the point falls between 0.02, right? So it's just like 0.01 point difference, that extra points to create that sharp edge. And we can even go further, like 0.05. I think like go down even further, that's not much different anymore. Right, so we're gonna stay here. Right, so this is the string that we are plotting. Right. So one thing that if you haven't noticed is that the x-axis is so this is the x-axis, right, the value, and this is the y-axis. But I think we plotted reverse. So it should start. So the vertical axis in this graph is the x-axis, is the I that we are going to plot out, and the horizontal axis is actually the bounce out value, right? So I'm going to swap this over, right? So this is what we have. Yeah. So the next thing we're going to do is do the bouncing rate dot that follows the line. So what I can do here is that I'm going to create a circle, and probably give an x value, y. So in circle, it's the center of the circle. So it's a center x, center y. And to style this circle, I'm gonna have like fill rate, and probably add a radius 5. I think it's called r. Right. So now we have a circle with a radius of 5, centering at 0.0. Now the next thing is to make it move. To make it move, right, we are going to use something called requestAnimationFrame. So the first thing is we're gonna let x and y be a variable. So x is 0 and y is 0, right? And so I'm gonna replace it, x over here and y over here. So how do we use requestAnimationFrame? So we can start define a function called loop, right? And then before the beginning of the time, we record the start time equals to date.now. And as we start over here, we're gonna request animation frame loop, and we're gonna add request animation frame loop here. Right, so this loop now calls on every animation frame, right? And how do we draw the x? Now we calculate how much duration we have passed. So let duration equals to current date, minus the start time, and then duration. So that will be how many milliseconds we have passed. So if we are going to move um, the value from 0 to 1 within, say, 2 seconds, then we can divide the duration by 2 seconds. Right, that will give us how far we have passed that 2 seconds. Right, so it should give us 0 if it's 0 if it starts at the starting time, and 1 if it's at the 2 second mark. Right, so and then the next thing is that the time may pass more than 200 2 seconds, right? So we're gonna use something called a modulo to bring that back to 0. So anything more than 1, it's gonna be back to 1 again, right? So the next thing we're gonna do is so x will equals to the duration that has passed. Right? Again, you don't see much movement, slight movement. That's because we are moving from 0 to 1, right? So we can blow that up by 200, and then you can start to see it's moving from 0 to 1. Again, the value of 0 to 1 should be the time, so it should be the y-axis instead of the x. So I'm going to change it to to y. And then the next thing we're going to do is that we're going to calculate the x value, right? So x is bounce out times the duration, and you don't see it moving because we need to blow up to 200. And now you see that it's bouncing on the line. And that's how I created this graph over here. Thank you for listening. Bye.